Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. So in this video I want to give you not just 5 but 8 reasons to see the 1959 film The Siege of Pinchgut. Strange title, but I'll explain. First up, just a brief explanation of what the film is about, without any particular spoilers. But yeah, this is a British film that's set in Sydney, Australia in the 50s. It involves escaped convicts who want to get out of Sydney. They get a boat, but they don't get very far. They only get into Sydney Harbour before they strike a rock and then end up having to make their way to a fort that's there in Sydney Harbour. Once on this fort, they then take the caretaker and his family hostage whilst the police close in on them with snipers. And then to add to the tension, there's a cargo ship that's out in the bay that has explosives on it. And couple that with the fact that the fort has guns and cannons and artillery there, then we're all set for what is potentially going to be a very tense standoff. And it's a great thriller. So, reason number 1 to see this film: this was the last film that was produced by the great British Ealing Studios. So 1959, the final film from them. Ealing Studios was actually bought by the BBC in 1955. And Ealing itself was absorbed into the Associated British Picture Corporation in 1958. So this was its final output. The great thing with Ealing films is when you get the opening credits, usually after directed by whatever, you then go straight into the film. But in an Ealing film, after the directed by, you always get this Ealing Studios logo appear on the screen. So this is the final time that you will see it. Ealing Studios, known for their classic comedies such as Kind Hearts and Coronets, The Lady Killers, The Man in the White Suit, but they also did dramas, and here they're doing a crime thriller. Reason number 2, the title, The Siege of Pinchgut. That's quite a strange title. Pinchgut is the informal name given to Fort Denison that's out in Sydney Harbour, which is also known by the name of Mudawanye in the Eora Aboriginal language. So Fort Denison, an actual location, it is a Martello Tower fort built in the 1840s, and it was chosen as being a great filming location, and it definitely is that. It's quite an exciting one to choose for a film like this, because it does have cannons there, it does have guns, and you're in this kind of difficult area for the police to be able to hone in on. Reason number 3, the film is directed by Harry Watt, who perhaps might not be a name that's familiar to most people, but he is quite a significant director. His first film was a short film, and it's called Night Mail. I actually showed in my video yesterday on Robert Hamer this GPO film unit box set, and Night Mail is included on this. A film from 1936. It's a train journey documentary about the Night Mail delivery service from London to Scotland. So maybe for modern audiences that might not sound too exciting, but this was a flagship film for the GPO film unit, and quite a significant one, because not only was it depicting how this mail is sorted and delivered, but this film had a music score from Benjamin Britten, and it also had poetic verse added by the great poet W.H. Auden. But in addition to that, whilst Harry Watt perhaps doesn't have that many films in his filmography that will be really famous to people, he did have experience in doing Australian movies, and so he actually had done a couple in 1949 and 1950, one being The Overlanders and the other being Eureka Stockade, both of which starred the famous Australian actor Chips Rafferty. Now, reason number 4 is to do with Sydney itself. Now, I don't know about you, but when I think of Sydney, the very first thing that springs to mind is the iconic Sydney Opera House. However, Sydney Opera House didn't actually open until 1973. And so here we have a film from 1959. The interesting thing about it is that they talk in the film about actually clearing land away for the building of the Sydney Opera House. As it turned out, Sydney Opera House, which was meant to be a 4-year project to build, ended up taking 14 years. So like I say, it didn't actually open until 1973. The year after this film was released, when construction was starting on the Sydney Opera House, the great Paul Robeson turned up to sing to construction workers his famous song Old Man River. Reason number 5. Now, I mentioned in the brief synopsis that in the Sydney Harbour we've got a cargo ship that's full of explosives. This is a really exciting plot point, and it's a very real threat. So, for example, in Canada in 1917 on the eastern coast in Halifax, there was an actual incident of a collision with a cargo ship that was full of explosives, and it was a absolutely devastating explosion. Over 1,700 people were killed in that and over 9,000 people injured. And then again in 1944 at the Victoria Dock in Bombay, India, there was another huge explosion involving explosives that were on a ship, and this incident left 80,000 people homeless. So yeah, as you can imagine, when this plot element comes up in this story, it's a very frightening thing to think of the potential consequences. Reason number 6. The cinematographer on this film is Gordon Dines, and he's a photographer that's of particular interest to me. Now, I've talked before on my channel about the Basil Dearden film Pool of London, which I found fascinating partly because the cinematography on this showed post-war London, and it was done to really great effect. Gordon Dines was a cinematographer who really could do a sort of documentary type feel to locations. So not only did he do Pool of London, but he also did the very influential The Blue Lamp. And just tying in with my interests again, I've talked before on my channel about the filmography of John Gilliman, a director who's well known for doing King Kong and the Towering Inferno. But this was a lovely film, British film that he did back in 1954 around people working in a department store. But again, a really sort of good documentary type feel to it. Great cinematography from Gordon Dines. So Gordon Dines really captures the locations well in this film. So not only are we getting to see these great shots of the fort where the main characters are being held, but certainly in the early parts of the film where we've got this really tense beginning as well, which involves the escape using an ambulance. We're getting to see lots of back streets in Sydney, so we're getting to see lots of how Sydney was back in the 50s. All of that kind of stuff I found really fascinating. Reason number 7. Now, when it comes to the cast, we've got quite an interesting cast here. So this is a British film that's set in Sydney, Australia, and yet the lead actor is an American actor. We've then got British supporting actors and just a few Australians in some of the supporting cast. So yeah, a little bit unusual there. But the lead actor in this is Aldo Ray. Now, Aldo Ray was quite a sort of burly actor, and he's particularly championed these days by Quentin Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino has suggested that he actually modelled Butch, the Bruce Willis character in Pulp Fiction, after Aldo Ray. He's also named Aldo Ray as a character in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, etc. And I believe Quentin Tarantino has actually screened a print of this film. I believe he's very much a fan of it because of Aldo Ray. And for me, Aldo Ray, actually, interestingly enough, the next film that he made after the Siege of Pinchgut was this one, The Day They Robbed the Bank of England, another British film, and this one was also directed by, hey, here we go again, John Gilliman. So I absolutely love this film. I've mentioned this one before. This is the film that director David Lean saw, and it prompted him to then cast supporting actor Peter O'Toole as Lawrence of Arabia. So yeah, very influential film this, but yeah, Aldo Ray is great in The Day They Robbed the Bank of England, and he is great in The Siege of Pinchgut. So reason number 8 is also to do with the cast. So like I say, Aldo Ray is the main actor in this. We've got supporting actors, British actors. So Elizabeth Sears is in this. She had just come off from being in the great British movie Room at the Top. And we've also got the great supporting actor Victor Madden, who's been in lots of features, really recognisable, a really good actor. But another actor in this who I just want to mention, and he is Australian, and it's Jerry Duggan. This was his first film role. He's playing the caretaker in this film, so he's the one that gets taken hostage. Now, Jerry Duggan was 49 when he made this film, but he got a BAFTA nomination for being the best newcomer. However, unfortunately for him, he was pipped to the post by a little 13-year-old called Hayley Mills, who had just starred in Tiger Bay with her father, John Mills. So unlucky for him there, but yeah, this is a good little role for him in The Siege of Pinchgut. It seems that after making this film, he mainly did a lot of TV work, although he did show up in some films in very small roles. So he was in Goldfinger, he was in The Servant, and later on he was in a couple of great Australian movies, Newsfront, and one actually I watched not too long ago, the great crocodile one, which is Dark Age with John Jarratt. So yeah, a bit of trivia there, but I have to say The Siege of Pinchgut is just a really exciting film to watch, no matter what your interest may be in any of the trivia I've just mentioned. But yeah, it's just a good thriller, well-paced, and it gets off to a really exciting start, even though some of the things that happen are perhaps a little bit questionable, but it's nonetheless, if you just go with it, it's exciting stuff. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed this one. Definitely hope more people can get to see it. Like I say, it's not currently available, but you might be able to track it down via the network label. It was brought out as a DVD there. I watched it on YouTube. There's probably other ways of watching it as well. So yeah, hope you can track it down. Let me know if you've seen it, or if you know this film. Please leave me any comments that you have. All the best to you. Hope to see you again. Bye-bye.